So you've probably heard about the killing of the buffalo, but let's talk about one of the men who literally went to war in defense of the buffalo against the settlers who were slaughtering them by the millions. This is Chief Quanah, an expert horseman, a genius, and a fierce warrior of the Comanche people. He was a leader of the Quanah band of Comanche, who were famous for never having signed any treaty with any white man, and for evading white men so effectively that they almost entirely avoided the outbreaks of smallpox, cholera, and several other diseases that Europeans brought with them. This is Ranald Slidell Mackenzie, a disabled and decorated Civil War veteran, and another strategic genius. Quanah was the roadrunner to Mackenzie's coyote, and Mackenzie spent literal years of his life trying to outsmart and capture Quanah. In the fall of 1871, Mackenzie marched 625 men into Blanco Canyon, and Quanah knew that they were there from the moment they stepped foot on the plains. On October 10th, while Mackenzie and his men slept, Quanah rode his cavalry directly into their camp to run off all of Mackenzie's horses, because a man on the plains without a horse was a dead man. The author of the book I'm summarizing calls the Comanche horsemen not only the greatest cavalry of their time, but potentially the greatest cavalry of all time. The Comanche were truly unmatched on a horse. So Quanah stampeded all of Mackenzie's horses and then quickly retreated into the darkness. The following morning, Mackenzie had to send 10% of his men marching back on foot the way they came. A small detachment of Mackenzie's men who were still searching for their horses came across several Comanche warriors. This is exactly what Quanah wanted to happen. These Comanche warriors played their part beautifully and ran straight towards the canyon walls. The small detachment of white men pursued these Comanches, which is exactly what Quanah wanted to happen, and right as the white men came in firing distance of the Comanches, the valley became absolutely flooded with Comanche warriors. When they looked up the canyon walls, it was swarmed with Comanche women, who were just as skilled with a bow and arrow and a horse as the men were. Quanah was only 23 years old when this was taking place. This was the white men's first encounter with him, and they were so terrified that 7 of them immediately abandoned the other 5. Quanah only managed to take down one of these men before he saw the rest of Mackenzie's men on the horizon marching towards him. Now, Mackenzie had a major advantage over Quanah. He knew that Quanah was traveling with his entire village, not just his warriors. Quanah had Comanche children and elderly with him. For this reason, Quanah knew that he had to outsmart Mackenzie, not outfight him. Quanah directed his men up the canyon walls to meet the women, and Mackenzie followed them, which is exactly what Quanah wanted to happen. It took Mackenzie's men much longer than Quanah's to scale the canyon walls, and when they got there, they realized that Quanah's village had crossed a river and then taken a sharp turn. Mackenzie followed the village tracks. He traveled all day following this trail. But then at dusk, Mackenzie realized he was right back at that river crossing where he had started. Quanah had led him in an elaborate circle all the way around the plains, right back to the starting point. Not only that, but when they recrossed the river, Quanah had his village split up in all different directions, so there were several trails heading back down the canyon. And Mackenzie wasn't sure which trail was the right one. For 3 whole days, Quanah used this tactic over and over and over again. And by that 3rd day, Mackenzie was over 100 miles away from his supply base. On top of that, on the 3rd day, Mackenzie encountered 2 stray Comanches, and he insisted on addressing these Comanches himself. And one of them immediately shot him with a barbed arrow that went so far into his bone he had to have it surgically removed. And both of these Comanches escaped unharmed. Embarrassed and outsmarted, Mackenzie retreated. He even left out that he was wounded in his official military report because he was so ashamed. Mackenzie was not used to being outsmarted. He graduated first in his class at West Point and was Ulysses S. Grant's favorite officer in the Civil War. For the next 4 years, Mackenzie would become obsessed with finding Quanah. And to do this, he tapped into 50-year-old knowledge that had since been ignored. Tactics that were learned by a famous group of mounted fighters called the Texas Rangers. Little did Mackenzie or Quanah know that the original Texas Rangers were assembled and funded by Quanah's own family. Quanah was half white, and his mother, Nauta, was a member of one of the most important families in Texas history, the Parker clan. I learned all of this in the book Empire of the Summer Moon. If you're interested in history from a US military perspective, from that angle it is extremely well researched.